What's that?
Dr. Brown was out. This House is now resumed. Prior to the suspension, this Honourable Chamber had resolved itself into a standing Finance Committee to consider the grant of the sums of money for service of this island. To that we resume.
Committees resume. The Honourable Member for St. Philip South.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I rise in support of this resolution, which is before us today. Mr. Chairman, it would have been my preferred position to speak to this Honourable Chamber after hearing from the Honourable Member for St. Michael West, simply because he did advance to me that he would have been speaking prior to my intervention. However, Mr. Speaker, be that as it may, I am indeed happy to perhaps share my position as it relates to the sargassum seaweed and the opportunities that are available to us as a country as we seek to deal with the issue which seems now to become an annual event rather than biannually. Mr. Speaker, I'm already on record,
Mr. Chairman,
sorry, in saying that as a country, we do not have natural resources like many other places in the Caribbean region. And that if God has so blessed us by sending the sargassum seaweed to our shores, now is the time that we should use this as an opportunity to generate, first of all, economic enfranchisement for people who are oftentimes deemed to be at the other end of the spectrum, but at the same time seek to rid our beaches of this, what some may refer to as menace that occupies our shores. I have said that if we were to put systems in place where we can actually trap the sargassum at sea, it is indeed a very useful commodity that we can start to look at using for the generation of menus where various types of pastries can be created. But that once it gets to our shores, then it is useless and can perhaps then be only used as a fertilizer or other waste material. Now, being captured at sea would mean that, one, we would have to outlay a fairly sizable amount of money to put the mechanisms in place where they can go out and take it from the seashores. But that given the constraints that we currently face, then that potential lies with those who are interested in investing in what clearly now is becoming an opportunity for business. And Mr. Chairman, I would want to urge investors who have had an eye on Barbados and can see the economic recovery that is taking place in this country, and that the confidence that has returned to this country through the management of our economy over the last 8 months, that here is an opportunity for us to enfranchise and empower people through encouraging people with deep pockets to come and invest in Barbados, taking advantage of this opportunity that has been created naturally. Now, we didn't have to go out there and seek this, but what we have to do is capitalize on it. Mr. Chairman, agriculture for many years has been neglected and to some extent has been treated too as though it is the Cinderella of all the ministries in Barbados. And that if we were to look at the things that we need to make agriculture work in Barbados, then I fundamentally agree that our first order of business is to be able to work with the farmers to give them the support that they need in order for them to be able to add to or contribute to our mission for food security in Barbados. And oftentimes we get complaints from the farmers that the costs of the inputs in agriculture are very prohibitive and that they find it too expensive to produce food that, if otherwise imported into Barbados, they are unable to compete. And this is a fact. This is a problem that we face in Barbados. Now, how do we seek to address this? We cannot only address it by asking government to give concessions for everything, to remove VAT from everything, to just give away everything, when in actual fact there are opportunities that are available to us if we, one, would seek to be a little more innovative in our approach, and two, identify the areas where opportunities are available to us. For me, if we are unable to track the sargassum at sea, and we have to wait until it comes ashore, then I believe that there is an opportunity for us then to be able to remove it from the beaches without all of the sand content, though, because when I looked at what happened at Bath Beach when the member for St. Michael South, the Honourable Minister for Blue Economy and Maritime Affairs, the Minister for the Environment, and myself went to Bath Beach, the way it was being removed from the beach, I was concerned with the amount of sand that we were losing as they were removing it with heavy-duty equipment. But if we can remove it without the sand content, then I am sure that there is an opportunity then for the sargassum to be used as some form of compost or turned into potentially a very good fertilizer. And that, to my mind, is an opportunity for farmers to be able to reduce their input costs in terms of fertilizers. And I dare say to you, Mr. Chairman, that when we look, for example, at an industry that we have had for centuries, what happened is that you would drive around Barbados now, and you'll be amazed at the amount of stunted sugarcane you will see in this country. And when I say stunted, I mean to the extent that people don't even know how to separate sugarcane now from grass. And even though sugarcane is a type of grass, it should be easy by the joints to be able to tell what is sugarcane. But you have king grass growing that grows fairly long, but it is slim like bamboo, and many people interpret it to be sugarcane. And why this is so? It is so simply because the sugar cane itself doesn't look any better. I have had serious consultation with the technocrats within the ministry, and I am indeed concerned about what is happening to our fields in sugar and non-sugar agriculture. And for that reason, I believe that now is the time where we have to step up with the potential that stands before us in the use of sargassum as a fertilizer. Because what they have all said to be is that there is a lack of proper fertilizers or at a reasonable cost for them to be able to fertilize the fields to increase yield in sugar and non-sugar agriculture. Now this must concern every single Barbadian, especially at a time when we look to issues of food security, issues of climate change, Mr. Chairman. And I am repeatedly saying that as we address issues of climate change, we as Barbadians tend not to be keeping abreast with what is happening to us in this country, because we hear about climate change and we believe that climate change is something far off and that we have time before it can actually impact us. And what is actually happening, Mr. Chairman? We are experiencing droughts. We are experiencing temperatures way beyond 28 to 30 degrees that we are accustomed to. Mr. Chairman, we are getting unpredictable hurricanes and storms that when hitherto these things were not impacting us the same way that they are now. And if we are to treat climate change seriously, then we're going to have to start to treat to what events are created and how we address them in terms of food security. And if this is dealt with the way my ministry is approaching it, then clearly we have a responsibility to be able to help our farmers get the necessary inputs, and in this instance, I'm speaking to fertilizers, to be able then to reduce the cost to the end user. For me, it doesn't cost us. Sargassum is free. But we then have to determine how we treat to this natural resource that we can then turn into making the cost of inputs lower than what they currently are. More importantly, I think that at the home agriculture station, we need to also take some of it there to see how we can then do scientific research to further determine how useful it may be as we look to do what people are referring to or people are clinging to in terms of clean agriculture. And clean agriculture basically means the use of shade houses. And I'm reluctant to say greenhouses because, again, people get that confused. But shade houses, where you control the temperature from inside out without having to go to technology. And then greenhouses, where you introduce technology. And then you start to look at agriculture in a completely different light, using fertilizers that have the nitrates, etc., that will be useful to advancing the growth period and at the same time getting us higher yields. Mr. Chairman, I can do no other than support this resolution because it brings for us an abundance of opportunities where if we can get the sargassum off the beaches in a timely manner and put it to useful purposes, then I think here's a tremendous opportunity for the country to benefit overall, and for us then to look at new horizons in terms of what we can do with it and in terms of how we can empower people. There are already young people, as the member for St. Michael South spoke of, who are already gone ahead and using the opportunity to be so entrepreneurial, to be able to take sargassum and turn it into fertilizers and other treatments that we can use for agriculture and other purposes. Mr. Chairman, if I believe as a nation we are to take seriously how we want to empower people, I believe this government would have taken the first step in this supplementary to demonstrate that we are serious and that we are willing to do whatever is necessary, one, to preserve our tourism industry by making sure we get it off the beaches in a timely manner, and two, use it as an opportunity for us to be able then to give people a chance to participate in business by being able to take the sargassum and use it to create business opportunities. So, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman, I am indeed in full support of this resolution, and I give my full support to the Minister for bringing this supplementary here. And I sincerely hope that overall, those Barbadians out there who are looking for an opportunity will see this as an opportunity for them to come forward and put their hands to the plow and help us to continue to rebuild this country. I'm obliged to you, Mr. Chairman.
The Honourable Member for St. Michael West.
Maybe it's an issue that has been resolved and I have missed it, but I know it was an issue which was quite a burning one in Barbados and quite one of some concern to many Barbadians, particularly so, and specifically so, those who were immediately impacted by the non-payment of overtime for the services they have been providing. Now we have an issue of the inability of the Sanitation Services Authority to properly provide that social service of collection of garbage with the appropriate frequency, due principally, as I understand it, to a lack of trucks. We do not want to compound the situation already existing by adding to that the matter of workers that are disgruntled and feel that they are being disadvantaged or perhaps discriminated against. I say that to perhaps urge the Honourable Minister to speak a word to us in his wrap-up on this matter with respect to that, and at least have this side updated on the issue. This is a matter of overtime, this supplementary before us. I also heard the Minister express the view that perhaps he might be able to use some of this to address the Cowitch problem in St. Michael East or St. Michael Central or both. And that is a very big problem in certain parts of Barbados. And I have appreciated what he has said thus far in public on the matter. But I do not know that this supplementary provides him with monies to address that issue. But certainly it's an issue which needs to be addressed. But this specific request relative to this supplementary before us is for the payment of overtime related to the cleaning of the beaches and the removal of the sargassum. I want as well, Mr. Chairman, to urge and invite the Honourable Minister to publicly take a very strong stand on the matter of beach access. He is particularly, and perhaps in this House most prominently known, for taking very strong stands on the basis of principle on matters of significant public interest. The matter of beach access or lack thereof, or the matter of declining access to the beaches of Barbados as public spaces, is a threat, a real threat. It is a reality that Barbadians believe they are experiencing. I have heard words of caution sounded in this House, indeed from the other side as well, with respect to that. Beaches of Barbados are known and said to be public spaces. Access to the beach must be afforded to Barbadians. This supplementary affords me the opportunity to draw a focus on that again, because we're talking about the health of our beaches. We're talking about the impact on our economy, our visitors, our guests, the impact upon locals. If beaches, for whatever reason, are found not to be welcoming places, or places to which access is denied for whatever reason, unsavory odors coming from the beach caused by sargassum. These things have driven people from the beaches. We have heard that said already in this debate. But beyond that, the wider issue of public access to beaches must remain a concern for us. We have had problems, Mr. Chairman, at the Crane. We've had problems revolving around the sandals, the new sandals presence in Christchurch. We have had issues of beach access around establishments in St. Peter. We have seen emerging issues relative to beach access in St. Michael on Bay Street of recent date. And therefore, I believe that it is important for me on this side to remind us that it is not only the unpleasant experience of rotten sargassum which will deny people the pleasure and privilege of use of beach and seawater in certain areas, whether it's on the East Coast, South Coast, but the whole business of lack of access must never be devalued in terms of its importance. And I'm inviting this minister, who I know often is loud of voice on matters of pertinent interest to the people of Barbados, to lend his voice to that. We have heard voices out of the National Conservation Commission reinforcing the view that the law provides that beaches must be spaces which give public access. I heard one member on the other side in the not too recent debate suggest that that space must not only be a track through which we can walk, but that many people are driving to the beaches these days, and therefore access to the beach is not just a track between two properties that allow us to walk one behind the other while it is there, but must be an open space that presents ready, convenient, and comfortable access for our people. A third thing, Mr. Speaker, I know this Ministry of the Environment was mandated, I think, by the Cabinet of Barbados because of the sewage-related situations on the South Coast. This ministry, I think, was mandated through one of its agencies, its departments, to ensure that there were daily samplings of the water at the Worthing Beach and other beaches in the Christchurch area, to ensure that the health of Barbadians, the health of our visitors, that public health was not in any way challenged or threatened, that the water was not so negatively impacted by the outflow from the Graham Hall swamp in the effort to address the sewage situation up there, that these samples were to be attained or obtained daily. And I would also ask the minister if he would use this occasion as the minister responsible for environment to speak to us as to that matter. What have the samples suggested, and what are the quality of the water at these beaches in the area? This is important. It's not only that we want to get the sewage off the street. It's not only that we want to eliminate the bad odor attendant upon that, but when a solution is attempted, and in this case a solution which entails or involves allowing outflow into the seawater, then the government, I believe, has a responsibility to keep Barbadians apprised as to what is the state of things as indicated by those tests, by those samplings. An attendant issue is the impact upon small businesses in the area. I haven't heard any suggestion as to what to date has been the impact upon small businesses operating in the area where we've had the problem with the sewage on the south coast, or where the beaches or the seawater would have been impacted as a result of attempts to resolve the situation. I do not know if there has been any quantification of the losses of that economic and financial impact upon small businesses, but that certainly would be a concern of mine. When things like these happen, big businesses sometimes can see it through. Big businesses sometimes can tuck their heads in, see it through, ride out the storm, so to speak. Small business are not so fortunately placed to be able to ride out those types of storms. And therefore, negative economic financial impact could in fact become ruin. And to date, I haven't heard anybody speak with reference to that. By the same token, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman, sorry, I would rather like to hear a clear statement as to whether or not it has been found that any of the bigger businesses in that area where we have the sewage problem and the beach closures, whether or not any of the bigger businesses have contributed significantly to the problems which developed around the sewer system in Christchurch. I think if that is the case, that has been found to be the case, measures, of course, need to be put in place to ensure that that type of thing never happens again. If that has been the case, then, of course, the issue is what possibility is there that sanctions be applied to those who, in big business, have contributed to the deterioration of the sewer system in the area. It is well and good, and we are happy that government can commit to, over time, rebuilding the system so that it functions in a modern Barbados and with a view for years to come, providing the kind of service that we would want to see. But if there are those who by their negligence, if there are those who by their willful actions, big businesses, big business entities, which have contributed to the state of things up there, then the possibility of sanctions, in my view, should be considered, and if found appropriate, such sanctions should be applied, because this is going to redound to a great cost to the Barbadian taxpayers' pocket, Mr. Chairman. Now, we should not see, and I heard very clearly my honourable friend from St. Michael South, I always hear him very clearly, and therefore we should not see the sargassum issue as a fleeting phenomenon. It appears from the forecasts and from what I have read that this is something which is likely to be with us for a while, and in fact likely to get worse before it gets better. And so we're dealing with something that we're going to have to face annually, maybe twice a year, especially at this time of year, Mr. Speaker, whether it is caused, as some suggest, by climate change or whatever is the cause. Certainly, Mr. Chairman, it is a new and added threat to our coastal economy. It is a new and added threat to our coastal economy. And sometimes when we talk economy, we want to think of the big business, but I like to think of fishermen, I like to think of vendors who operate on our beaches, small craft operators who provide entertainment for our guests, etc., etc., etc. These people's interests have to be protected. So we're dealing with a phenomenon which can impact our coastal economy and those who make their living there, but then by extension, the rest of the Barbadian economy, and therefore it's a serious thing which government must continue to put its mind to. What is before us is some money to pay for over time, but I look forward in the estimates to be seeing a lot of money through the Ministry of the Maritime Affairs and the Blue Economy, and even through the Ministry of the Environment, to in a positive way address the business of the use of sargassum. I'm sure St. Michael South will ensure that that comes. And my final point, perhaps, Mr. Chair, that I would want to make, if that is true, and the forecast is that this thing is likely to get worse, then we are possibly talking in more the near term than the distant term of having to compensate people who earn a living on the sea from fishing and who will be impacted by this. We have had instances in the Caribbean and not far from us where persons in agriculture, for instance, pest crops would come or bad weather systems would come and crops are wiped out. And those who make the living from that have to be supported by some means of state compensation. And this government ought, if this problem is going to stay with us and be of the magnitude which is suggested by forecasters, to start thinking of how you will compensate those who make their living from the fishing industry, because their livelihoods are going to be threatened in the future. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Now a member for St. Michael East.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman. First of all, let me thank all of those who are worthy of thanks. And also say how I appreciate the democratic process for allowing those who are unworthy to speak. There are a number of young Turks in this chamber in this morning's session clearly indicated that there is some level of hope and comfort. I am a little bothered by the slant on the slide of people not feeling very passionate about the role of the state, and lots of the statements that were made today clearly validated the importance of organs which are representative of the role of the state. The state role must never be seen as collecting taxes. state must also continue to give direction to the kind of future that we would like to build. We know that there are always challenges because that is the dynamics of life, and therefore from time to time there will be victory in our objectives, and at times there will be pushback for those persons, especially the money magnates, both expatriates and locals. But the speeches this morning were impregnated with that hope, and it tells us that we have a responsibility not to allow those that control the commanding heights of our economy to consciously or subconsciously buy the psyches of parliamentary representatives who only see growth in terms of dollars and cents, contributing nothing to people's development. Those progressive thoughts give me the assurance that we can still, as a result of understanding why all of these agencies and ministries within central government still remain important, especially in small island developing states, probably even more so than in the metropole. We have a responsibility because it's our experience that when these mechanisms were put in place, our people begin to enjoy elements of liberty and begin to enjoy elements of development. So I want to thank all of them, because, you know, for a long time, they've been bewildering answering yourself if when you're elected to Parliament, if you have that freedom of authority to be able to go in a direction which is a form of reciprocity to the very people who you went cap in hand asking for support during the general elections. During the general election, the ordinary man in the street is the most important man because he constitutes the majority. We talk to them about the masses and how great they are. But in the post-election, all of a sudden, those who control the commanding heights of the economy become the most important people. And when you advance an argument on the behalf of the ordinary persons in exercises like these, because the NCC workers are made up of ordinary people, and ordinary people sometimes that others believe that they're not too educated. Some people believe that they're muscle bronze, that they don't think because they're not products of an educational system that they believe is most important in terms of measuring the value of human beings. So therefore, people are dismissed. People are dismissed. Keep quiet, do it there. People are dismissed. Sometimes when they spend their entire life working on the behalf of the same victims that they attempt to defend, are the most adamant, the most vehement, and almost militant individuals that defend elitism. It is most unfortunate. People that are members of the wretched of the earth speak passionately about defending people whose history always indicate clearly that all that their interest was and still is to abuse and exploit our people. I am not going to be part of that, even if it costs me the ministry. So that is clear. I am not going to be part of that, even if it costs me the ministry. I don't have to be honored by being a minister if it costs me the ministry. I am committed to this, and I will continue to stay on that path. I want to thank, I know Minister Phillips, and I want to thank him for drawing my attention to a spot which is probably better known to him than me, probably after 6 p.m. And you talk about the value of River Bay. I don't know what are the features that no longer exist at River Bay. So I want to, as minister responsible, and I will make the attempt to see if we can restore it to its original position. And I probably can speak on the behalf of the minister that is responsible for maritime affairs and the blue economy. I will ask him if he can at least share the experience of that, having that journey with you to River Bay, so that we can see what you're complaining about. I'm not a regular visitor. I can't remember where River Bay is, but I can understand you expressing your interest in defending the people of St. Lucie and that asset which you call River Bay. And probably not in these quarters we will be able to speak more about your exploits in River Bay. At present? You're making me fully aware of these things. This minister is not going to be involved in any dramaturgical approach to politics. I am not the minister from, Minister Lowe, who at one time occupied the precincts of this chamber, who was the Minister of the Environment. I am not going to wash off and shine trucks and pose for a photograph and try to impress upon the Barbadian public and sell it like a pharmaceutical to the people of Barbados that he has brought in new trucks after 10 years in Parliament. And to some extent, there was no critical analysis or no probing to determine if this man is a fake man or not. So I've done my part whenever, and I thought it was on the right path when the two first trucks came in at the harbor. I asked for permission because I want to witness them, because I also know that there are people who say they import and they didn't import anything. So I didn't want the Barbadian public to believe that I am also importing, taking a picture with the trucks at the Garrison Savannah, and I have some new trucks where people put wax and polish on them and take a picture for the general public of Barbados. So I decided I would follow the entire path. That was my approach to it. And I took a long staff from there. 3 weeks after the trucks, the challenges came within the interim period between the date at the harbor and the trucks coming to the sanitation. And I followed it to the sanitation, and I was privileged to see, and I even was privileged to start the engine to make sure that it had in an engine. Right? A driver. The Minister Dugan also member for Christchurch West, Minister responsible for transport. He also indicated that he would like piece of this kit. This is a rock kit. It is extremely small. It's $282,000. And it is not an addition to the principal sum that was allocated to the ministry. The principal sum is a reimbursement. So therefore, I am in the same position as when the approval and the estimates was given. They just give me back what is ours. But I believe that the government will be generous to him. the estimates is coming up soon, and the appropriate sums that they believe that he deserves would be allocated to his ministry. I would hope that he will also share some of that money with the Ministry of the Environment, since we also are doing a lot of work. I want to thank, I can't remember all, but I know the Defense Force. I would be remiss of me if I didn't thank the Defense Force for the amount of work that they did. SBRC, a private entity, also came on board. A whole set of the Ministry of the Maritime and Blue Economy, Drainage Unit, the whole set of ministries. I want to thank all of them who participated. I can't list all. I also want to thank the individuals and the groups who participated in the cleanup program. Without those volunteers who did not even ask for one cent. And I want to urge them, don't let it be a one-off affair. I will hope that in the future, because we're going to have this challenge every year, we don't have the required equipment. We had to use tractors. We had to use equipment that was not made for that purpose. The equipment had to go on the margins of the ocean, between the sand and the sea, and lots of that salt water went into not only metal parts, but also rubber and so on, and the chances are that the demand for maintenance will become much faster than it normally would become. I believe that at some point, I don't know what the special type of boat would be, but at some point we're going to have some kind of equipment that we can use in the ocean to help us to trap that seaweed in the ocean, as indicated by the Minister of the Maritime Economy. We're going to have to trap it in the ocean. The things that were used, for example, he was making special reference to whatever that equipment is called that was used at the crane. The crane was a major challenge. When we visited Bath, we recognized that we could not track all the sargassum on that coastal area. And by morning, the sargassum was into the crane. And we tried to see if we can make contact with it at different strategic points. But when we got to the crane, although we had deployed lots of members of the Defense Force there, they worked an entire day. Almost all the sargassum that was pulled from the ocean and put on the shore, when the sea rose in the evening, it took the same sargassum that we put on the shore and took it back into the ocean, and that sargassum found its way right down to Miami Beach. And we had the problems at Miami Beach as well. So it's a complex challenge, and obviously we were all trying to see how we can stop it early, because as I said earlier, we had to take into consideration the people and the businesses that live in the Christchurch pocket, right down to as far as Worthing's Beach, all below there. Those persons were already experiencing a drop in business, smelling the perfumes from the sewage on that area. The people who are working on the beaches, and probably this is the right time for me to say this to the leader of the opposition. At all times when we test the water, and we recognize that the water, through the EPD, we test the water every week. And at all times when we realize that the standards were beyond what is accepted, we can't rid the water absolutely of pollution. That is something that would probably only have happened in heaven. So we know that there's going to be some element of pollution, but there are measurements that are used, and the EPD working in conjunction or in collaboration with the Ministry of Waterworks, in the Cabinet Committee led by Minister Abrams. We meet every Monday morning. We don't allow a week to pass unless we meet. I might be guilty sometimes of irregular attendance because I know that the committee is in competent hands. He is probably underestimated for his versatility, but though he might be specialized as an attorney at law, I sometimes believe that he is a natural scientist as a consequence of his ability in understand what is needed and to come to grips with the scientific jargon and the reasoning that is important. And he keeps that committee on its toes. I believe that I marveled many days, asked myself, how did this small man, at least I'm talking about the size of the capacity of his head. Like, how can a man with that size head contain so much and understand so much about everything? So I want to compliment him for the work that he's doing. There are some suggestions that we must purchase some instrument or mechanism called a grabble. There's a grabble? Something, I think it is something very much like what they use in the cane fields. And I suppose that is when the sargassum is close to the shores as well. So the innovative minds, I know there are some engineers here, there are some scientists here. The innovative minds, just like they are creating a mechanism to help us to remove the cane in the cane fields. And they say that is a Barbados original. I would like to believe that we can produce a Barbados original as well, because that's where we have a university, and that's why we are now having many universities all around us, because this is a body of knowledge in the Mecca of the Caribbean. And I would like to believe that sooner or later we'll be able to identify the correct kind of equipment that will help us to extract that sargassum in its gold form. Because the Ministry of the Maritime Economy indicated the value of it, the utility value of it when it is in its gold form. It can be used effectively for alternative energy. When it is depreciating, or what was the better word? Okay, let me start with depreciating. When it's depreciating, most persons say it's better to use it for manure, and we've been inviting farmers. When it's disintegrating, and at the time becoming offensive, the odor of it, or the cologne. The farmers are invited. It's an invitation to the farmers, and they can have some value as a result of taking the sargassum out of the sea and bringing their trucks and carrying it directly into their lands. The leader of the opposition, who is my friend and who I'm responsible for, he's my constituent. The irony of it is he and many members of his staff are all members of my constituency, and I will hope that he'll be with me in the trenches again. but I will hope that the handed down two-party system, which we have, although he hasn't decided to go as far as a party yet, he's probably in transition. But I hope that that would not cause any divide, and I can depend on you and your household for some support. Don't write me off. I make history, not like the DLP. This year, we are going to have, based on the experts, that the sargassum is going to be around for a prolonged period. And we have to be thinking of it, because our tourist industry that rely very much on the promotion of the big bamboo. I don't know what that means. The big bamboo and the yellow birds and so on. All the entertainers sing in the clubs at night as though Barbados produce nothing else, and that the artists have no creativity. Our industry is going to depend very much on having the guests being able to enjoy the comforts of the South Coast waters, or not. That is going to impact, as indicated before, on vendors. The vendors have been crying out. There are vendors on Miami Beach here, all down that South Coast. They've been crying out as a consequence of and that's why I call it Ambenis. I would hope that the university and persons who are involved in trying to give it some kind of scientific value and some kind of utility value would at least come up with something so that we can make it an asset to the national economy. There's some hope in that as well. So I'm looking forward to that, because this is a major threat, and I'm sorry that the Minister of Tourism didn't engage in this debate, because the industry which he is responsible for is likely to find itself in great difficulty if this sargassum stay around for a prolonged period. The leader of the opposition also put another public issue to me. I know it is something vented all around. Beach access. He did not state any specific location, but I obviously am a strong advocate of defending the right for our people to have access to the beach. The NCC again is responsible for the increase in the commercial activities around all the local beaches. You will see a major increase of vendors on the beaches, people owning restaurants. You will see an improvement in not just the service, improvement in the units, the restaurant buildings on the South Coast and the West Coast. I made it my duty to give priority to making sure that those black men who own business on the coast can also bring themselves up to the standard of other persons who also conduct business on the coast. That is not a statement that is prejudiced. Some people don't like to face certain variables. So, black people can only talk about class. They can only speak about gender issues, but nobody can speak about race. Because everybody wants to argue that everybody came from Adam and Eve. Nobody even want to upset the Cain and Abel. And nobody don't want to upset the mystery that you're talking about 3 men on the face of the earth and 1 woman. Incest will have to be an element to take into consideration, unless those who are theologists can bring some clarity to my ignorance. But my view is that if you're going to talk wisely, and let us at least explore these things and stop living in the fantasy world. But that's my view. But I can assure you that I am not going to preside over ministry. Lots of people don't believe me when I say things, but I'm not going to preside over a ministry where anybody makes me abandon all the fundamental principles that I have spent my entire life trying to defend. I would just like to gracefully, when that time comes, I have made a number of sacrifices so far that I have become a minister, and I am at the point where I don't know how long I would even remain a minister in the government of Barbados. But
I remember you have 2 minutes to conclude, sir.
I'm telling you that that would not be my style. And if I make a bad judgment, I would say I have made that bad judgment in the interest of people who look like me. I've made that bad judgment in the barefoot people from the community from which I belong. Barefoot, powerless people from which I belong. As long as I am happy with the responsibilities that have been delegated to me, I would remain in the forefront and the front bench of this party. So I want to thank all those who participated, including the asides that I really should not have responded to. But I want to thank everybody, at least for their contribution to this discussion, this conversation that we have had this morning. I beg to move that the bill be read the second time. Not yet? I beg to move that the head stamper.
The question is that the head stamper, all those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Think the ayes have it.
I beg to move that you do not report to His Honour the Speaker the passing of one money resolution in Committee of Finance.
Second. The question is that I now report to His Honour the Speaker the passing of one money resolution in the Standing Finance Committee. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. I think the ayes have it.
Chairman of Committees has reported the passing of one money resolution in the Standing Finance Committee.
Mr. Speaker, I beg that this resolution be read a first time.
Questions that the aforementioned resolution be read a first time. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I beg that this resolution be read a second time.
Questions that the aforementioned resolution be read a second time. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I beg that this resolution be now agreed to.
Questions that the aforementioned resolution be agreed to. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it. This resolution is agreed to and passed.
Order number 3. Order number 3, in the name of the Honourable Attorney General, to move the second reading of the Interpretation Amendment Bill 2018.
Member for St. Joseph.
Mr. Speaker, there are occasions
That seemed to happen all too frequently for this honourable member, where I have to move various statutes through this chamber. And I regret that on some occasions they're not topical, nothing exciting, nothing, as they would say, that would be considered sexy, if that has any meaning in political terms. But there are times, sir, when, as trite as an amendment might appear, its impact is far-reaching. And I am honored to move the amendment to the Interpretation Act in this chamber because it represents yet another phase in a transformational project that this administration has started with great fervor. And perhaps while we may not have said in the last election that we're going to transform how Parliament works, it has been evident to us, and perhaps it has always been evident to us, that a transformation of our parliamentary processes has been overdue for a long time. Today's amendment, Mr. Speaker, is an amendment to the Interpretation Act, and it only has about 3 or so clauses. And the first of those clauses is to change the definition of printing so that for the purposes of a parliament in the year 2019, printing now takes on a more expansive and modern meaning rather than just that thing that started hundreds of years ago with the printing press. Technology, as everyone knows, has taken over every aspect of our lives. But somehow our institutions of government have for some reason held on like a bulldog to some of these things that bear little relevance to a new generation of Barbadians, sir. Mr. Speaker, in preparation for my daughter's sojourn at the University of West Indies, and I hope it is not a long sojourn, I asked her if she had a book list, because I expected that I would have to dip into what is commonly called the bank of dad and buy books. It turns out, sir, that every single piece of material that she has used in her university education this far doesn't come between hardcovers and in pages. The entire book and series of books and publications are found online. But yet still, throughout our public service, we do little or nothing unless it is documented on paper. All of the new members of cabinet and even the older members of cabinet, sir, endure the frustrations of being told on a weekly basis that a file has to move from Ministry A to Ministry B. And you would forgive the younger members of Parliament for thinking that that was a virtual process. But they have come to understand with great consternation that it actually means that the physical file has to move from Ministry A and be put into a motor vehicle and driven all across. I suspect the furthest ministry is the Ministry of the Blue Economy up, is it Coverley, up Charnock's? It has to be physically driven up Charnock's. When in truth and in fact, our modern world and our modern existence sees documents transferred across oceans almost instantaneously. But our public service and everything that we do emphasize that a physical document has to move from place A to place B. We've ventured into something now called e-cabinet. And Mr. Speaker, e-cabinet is something that has been in the gestation stages now for perhaps 4 or 5 years. But every day at Cabinet, each Cabinet Minister gets a huge folder with volumes and volumes and reams of paper, which constitute the material from which he is intended to make a decision, when in truth and in fact all of these documents are generated electronically at one point in time or another. I know this is to state the obvious, sir, but the fact is that our modern administration cannot only be modern in thinking, it has to be modernized in the very way in which we do things. And the Minister of Finance would be the first person to say that that kind of modernization also saves us money, because we don't have to invest in significant sums to spend money on paper, printing devices, and on ink. And our minister responsible for the environment will see the environmental elements of it, both from the point of view of saving our trees, but also from the point of view of reducing the amount of waste that makes its way to our dump. And the Minister of Energy will see the benefits of that as well, because of the amount of energy that is going to be used in all of the printing and that kind of stuff. So as simple as it sounds, sir, by simply changing the definition of printing to include the capacity to generate documents in the electronic form, we, in that simple step, begin to change how government works. Last week when we were here, we changed our standing orders, and for the first time in hundreds of years, our Parliament is now able to receive documents as having been laid in an electronic form. Now, that particular amendment to the standing orders was a precursor to an exercise that we expect to do later today, sir. And it is the electronic laying of our annual estimates. Now, Mr. Speaker, this is your first time in this chamber, and it's the first time of many of you, many of us in this chamber. But the estimates process has at its heart the printing of 3 volumes of books, including the annual estimates itself, and then I think it's the staff list, which lists every employee and every post in government and the personal monuments. But one of the obvious challenges, sir, is because it needed to be laid in paper form, the laying of estimates in Parliament was dependent entirely on the capacity of the government printery to produce adequate numbers of each of these documents, because when it is laid, it has to be made available to each parliamentarian. That is an inefficient exercise. It is also a wasteful exercise. But perhaps the unkindest cut of all, sir, is the fact that by insisting on a paper-based format, it is all of our financial planning for the year was limited to the people in this chamber and limited to the public servants who, in a silo, prepared it. We have pledged as an administration to an openness, a transparency about how we deal with government affairs. Mr. Speaker, only 2 or 3 weeks ago we passed a public finance bill, the centerpiece of which, the golden thread which passed through it all, happened to be that the public had a right to know. That's what it was. There's something about shining the light on the activity of government officials that promotes uprightness in our financial affairs and all that goes with it. Because when we commit to spending $300,000 on a particular item of expenditure, we in the past would talk about it in here, and the public would perhaps hear if they chose to listen, and the public might become aware if the particular minister happened to mention it. But by and large, unless somebody was assiduous enough to go to the public library and ask for it and pour through its pages. Only then, sir, would a member of the public know how much money it is proposed to spend on a road in Laming, St. Joseph, or how much money is supposed to be spent on Jones River Bridge, and what our plan was. And therefore, when I talk about the transformation of government and the transformation of Parliament, all of these pieces of the puzzle fit together to create a new Parliament, notwithstanding the age of some of its members, to create a new Parliament, sir, that is not only more open, but we expect to be more responsive, Mr. Speaker, to the people that we're elected to serve. So what are the components of this tapestry, Mr. Speaker? Electronic laying of documents in Parliament means that on the day or from the moment it is laid, it is electronically transmitted to Parliament and put on Parliament's website. Something as simple as that, sir, but can mean so much to the population of Barbados. The estimates document, as it currently is formulated, consists of hundreds, if not thousands, of pages. But as a result of the Public Finance Act, which we've just passed, it will also need to be accompanied by many, many more documents. Documents produced by every ministry, stating what their plan for the year is going to be in great detail. Documents produced under the statute by every single department, every single statutory corporation, every single limited corporation. Everything that government has an interest in also has to put those documents available under the Public Finance Act. All of that, Mr. Speaker, amounts to a huge amount of paper per member of Parliament and creates a difficulty for disseminating information easily to government departments and to the members of the public. So the order was not magical, but it was logical. We started with the Public Finance Bill, which created an environment of financial openness. We amended then the Standing Orders of Parliament so that all of those documents, which were already voluminous enough, but which perhaps now trebled in size, all of those are now laid in Parliament electronically. We've eliminated the wastage that is attendant with printing volumes of these documents. And now, sir, we come to that third stage where when it comes to gazetting, we are also able to do it electronically. Now, what is gazetting, sir? Barbados produces a gazette. There are actually very few sections of our laws which relate to the gazette at all. But many, many, many statutes stipulate that various things must be published in the Gazette. If you appoint a board, you have to publish it in the Gazette. If you give a tax relief, it has to be published in the Gazette. If you appoint somebody to be a judge, to be a magistrate, to act as a minister, it has to be published in the Gazette. If you want to get a new insurance policy because you lost the old one, again, published in the Gazette. Mr. Speaker, the way in which the government of Barbados gives notice to the world is through that thing called our official Gazette. And that is what it is intended to do, sir. This is an idea that will be natural for lawyers, the concept of giving notice to the world. But, sir, how do you do it? You give notice to the world by making available in some kind of public repository the information that you're required to give the notice of. Now, I hope that doesn't sound too complex, but what it means, Mr. Speaker, is that in relation to land transactions, you file them in the registry. so that if you want to find out, you go and look. But the point is, everybody knows where to look. So in the land registry, you have notice to the world. In the company's registry, you also have notice to the world. But for a whole raft of other documents and information, notice to the world revolves around it being published in the Gazette. Well, there are two things, Mr. Speaker. The world has gotten an awful lot larger than it used to be. The world for us now is not limited by the shoreline of Carlisle Bay, Bathsheba, North Point, and South Point. The world is now literally the world. And our ability, therefore, not that there's any legal requirement for it, but our ability to promulgate public data ought not to be constrained by our ability to physically print a document or to print it at given times. So notice to the world, which is given life by being published in a Gazette, now takes on a new spectre, sir. And it requires, in a modern society, that act of giving notice should be fully accomplished by virtue of a digital publication. So, it means that when we publish things in the Gazette, when we print things in the Gazette, you are no longer required to go to the government printer and get a document, give him the ad or the notice or whatever it is, and have it run through a press and printed at either a Monday or a Thursday. What will now happen is, because we have an opportunity to go digital with our Gazette, it means, Mr. Speaker, that we can publish the Gazette as required, and that we don't have to do the physical printing. Mr. Speaker, the Supreme Court of Judicature Amendment Act of 2019 was passed in the House of Assembly last Tuesday and passed in the Senate on Wednesday. Her Excellency the Governor General gave it the royal assent, but before it could become law, it had to be published in the Gazette. What did that entail, sir? It meant that the government printery had, almost in a frenzy yesterday, to try to arrange for the physical printing and publication of that document. And if the electricity had gone off on Bay Street, that statute that is so important to the Attorney General's office for increasing the number of judges would not be law today. Arguably, Mr. Speaker, if the printing presses had broken down, it could not be law today. If the amount of ink, it could not be law today. If the department had gone on strike, if we'd had a hurricane, any of those number of things would have prevented a statute properly passed in both houses, assented by the Governor General, but because of an inability to accomplish a physical act, it would not be law today. Mr. Speaker, this isn't something that I should even have to speak long about. I shouldn't, because it should be so obvious. You know what is on your bank account, more than likely,
Zero.
by checking your
Zero. That is correct.
Mr. Speaker, you are able to confirm on a daily basis by checking your phone that you have $0 in your bank account. And then you kneel and pray at night that tomorrow when you look, am I having a little bit more? 6 zeros. What comes before the zero? But there's so many elements of our society that the digital world has taken over, and it would be an embarrassment for this Parliament, Mr. Speaker, to continue to hold on to something that is now entirely anachronistic. If you look into many offices, lawyers, accountants, government offices, if you look in Parliament, sir, you will see years and years and years of gazettes that have not even been untied. I believe in your law office, Mr. Speaker, you probably get them too. and you try to check them the first day, and then the next time, and then the next time, and after about 3 or 4 months, you give up. But they come every year. They come every week, every year, but eventually you give up. But there's also the convenience, sir, to those people abroad who subscribe to our Gazette. We may not think it, but there are a large number of entities and printeries and companies abroad who make it part of their business model to subscribe to gazettes from every single country in the world. But what happens is, sir, that they're going to get posted. So they're actually rolled up and a stamp put on, and they go to the post office, and from the post office to the, I don't know, airport, seaport, wherever it is, and you hope that it arrives at its destination in its pristine form. Mr. Speaker, even the post office is having challenges today, and the Minister of Home Affairs may at some point in time have an opportunity to discuss that, maybe even during the estimate, sir. Because the concept of what was a document has long passed. Every single member of cabinet on his tablet is able to sign and to give his assent to various ministerial things without even printing a piece of paper. He signs it on his tablet, hits an email function, and it goes back, and it is treated as if it were printed, sir. So, Parliament, as the highest court in the land, has to be brought, if necessary, kicking and screaming into the future. And I'm satisfied, sir, that the parliamentarians of today are ready to seize this opportunity to relate not just to Parliament as an institution, but to their constituents, whether in a constituency setting or in a ministerial setting, in a new way, in a digital mode. But equally, Parliament also has to reach out to the populace in a digital mode. So the official Gazette, as of when this bill passes through the Senate and is printed perhaps for the last time on a piece of paper, this official Gazette, as we now know it, will be a thing of the past. Now, Mr. Speaker, there are also some realities that face us. The government printery has also lost employees, and the Minister of Labour may want to weigh in on this particular issue, has also lost employees through the retrenchment process. And therefore, having lost employees, the physical machinations that have to be gone through to produce the Gazette have also hit a stumbling block, because they no longer have the numbers of people to put the document together, to do all the typesetting and all those things, and then to get it printed. So in some respects, though it is not in response to the retrenchment, but as a result of the retrenchment, sir, and the loss by the government printery of a number of employees, this particular measure also serves a salutary purpose. So, Mr. Speaker, I don't know that there's much more that I could usefully add. There's a Shakespearean quote, I think it's from Julius Caesar. People who went to the University of Waterford might readily remember it.
Oh, yes.
There's a tide in the affairs of men, which when taken at the flood leads upward. I don't remember anymore, sir. It's not I don't know it, I just don't remember it. I don't remember it. But this, Mr. Speaker, is that tide. And I am proud to be in an administration that demonstrates that even when it comes to small things, we are prepared to do what is necessary to transform our ability to do the big things. One of the things that we've had to grapple with as a parliament, come into government at a difficult time, having to make difficult decisions, and perhaps what has tested our mettle more is the fact that in almost every instance we have not, Mr. Speaker, had the luxury of being able to spend 9 months working our way through a particular thing. That tested our mettle. And on many occasions, sir, the leader of the opposition and his colleagues in the other place have rightfully chastened our administration because of the fact that they get documents late. And I say rightfully, sir, not because we're asking forgiveness, but we are asking and have been asking for that accommodation because of the circumstances that we find ourselves in. But I have to admit that on the other side, when we sat in opposition, that we were equally strident in speaking out against the government thrusting bills at us at the last moment. Now, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. We didn't like it then, and I side with any parliamentarian on any side who says, please give us the documents a little earlier. And Mr. Speaker, all of these initiatives are intended to bring our parliament and our processes into a modern era, but also into an era where we will have an open, transparent, and more responsive parliament. It is a small bill, only 3 or 4 clauses. Probably when you count all the substantive words together, you might not even reach 100. Probably don't reach 100, sir. But you know what? Those 98 or 99 words will so impact on how we relate to the public we serve that it is worth every ounce of effort that it took to put those words together. The Interpretation Act probably has never been amended, I don't know, in 30 or 40 years. But it is an amendment, sir, the time for which is long overdue. I commend this bill. I believe that it will serve to help to transform how we do things. And more importantly, sir, it represents another step by this administration in the direction of accountability and transparency. And I believe, sir, that the public is owed such a duty. I'm obliged to you. Sorry, can't do this part electronically. I beg to move that this bill be read a second time.
Second that.
Honourable Mr. James Angel.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise to make a very short contribution to this bill. And I begin, sir, by reflecting on the fact that for a period of very close to 10 years, while we sojourned in opposition, I was, I dare say, blessed. Sometimes I felt burdened with the responsibility of shadowing the Ministry of International Business, and indeed at one point International Business and Commerce and Small Business Development. And the fact of the matter is, Mr. Speaker, sir, that I don't think there would have been a time that I spoke in the Parliament of Barbados during that 10-year period that I did not draw to the attention of the then administration the burning need for us to place greater emphasis as a country and indeed as a parliament and a place of legislature on the issue of business facilitation in Barbados. I listened very carefully just now to the learned Attorney General in his presentation, and he made the very critical point that, you know, Mr. Speaker, sir, this is about transformation, and he is right. And part of the transformation of our legislative landscape has also to be the ability of the government to respond to what is really a structural deficiency in Barbados that has been diagnosed by all who have spent any time studying the way the Barbados economy and by extension society works. And the comment, not necessarily in a jaundiced and critical, from a jaundiced and critical perspective, but the comments made in good faith have been always involving, among other things, of course, the issue of our ability to facilitate business in Barbados in a better way. Now, Mr. Speaker, sir, I start from that premise because this piece of legislation, and I did count the words, sir, as the Attorney General drew it to our attention, in 91 words, this piece of legislation helps us get a little bit further down the wicket on this matter of facilitating business in Barbados. I wanted, sir, to be able, not for you, because I know that you have had to go through these documents countless times, but I wanted, sir, to just walk the House through a very brief example of an official gazette's relevance in the context of facilitating business. This one is I hold in my hand, sir, the 11th of February 2019. Mr. Speaker, sir, the first thing that jumps off the page at you is that there's appointments to the Board of Directors of the Transport Board, and then the minister responsible for commerce would have made certain orders. It is impossible, Mr. Speaker, to do litigious business, to do commercial business, indeed in many forms of administrative exercises with the Transport Board, if you are not cognizant of the individual who chairing and so on and so forth. Equally, for commercial matters, Mr. Speaker, sir, the orders made by the Minister of Commerce as they impact and resonate on the society and economy are matters that you need to be able to get at your fingertips. If you turn the page, the next thing that comes out, sir, is an insert on the Supreme Court of Judicature Act being amended. And I need not tell you, of all people, Mr. Speaker, sir, that none of us who practice at the bar would have been able to do anything on behalf of any client that we have if we're not familiar with adjustments of that nature, and again, at our fingertips. And the problem in Barbados historically has been that in every step along the way, not only with regard to the official gazette, but in several other instances, somebody sitting at a desk outside of Barbados or in Barbados, trying to do something on behalf of a client, trying to do something on behalf of the business that they are running, finds themselves spending precious hours, in some instances squandering time, and time is money, because you are attempting, sir, to be able to get over bureaucratic hurdles and administrative hurdles and go through red tape and get access to information and all those other things, which we are now seeking, as the Attorney General has eruditely expatiated upon. We are now seeking, Mr. Speaker, sir, in a transformative way to make readily available at your fingertips. So this act, sir, is about speed, it is about efficiency, and it is about productivity. And we are referring to printing now as the reproduction by electronic or digital means, and publication, sir, is done not only in the good old-fashioned way of picking up a document or reading it, but equally valid is the publication by electronic means. So we bring this part of the government's business into the technological age. And Mr. Speaker, sir, the transformative thing is that this is how this administration has set about from the very beginning to try to pull a creaking bureaucracy, an aged and in some instances archaic bureaucracy into the 21st century. We did it from the very first day, Mr. Speaker, sir, when the Ministry of Smart Technology and Innovation was created, so that there will be an overarching ministerial structure via which all of these innovative things would be done. Mr. Speaker, sir, the country sits quietly by and very often does not hear us trumpeting successes from the rooftops. But for argument's sake, it comes to mind that the Prime Minister of Barbados is out of the jurisdiction today on a trip that, among other things, would have had her interfacing with regional heads on matters of regional security. Most particularly of concern would have been the state of affairs in Venezuela, and quite legitimately so, because as head with lead responsibility for the integration of CSME and the implementation of CSME, sir, the head from Barbados must have some attention paid to details that are completely affecting society and economy in a country which is part of the Caribbean region, but only a couple, not even a couple hundred miles, 100 and something miles away from Barbados. But Mr. Speaker, sir, that process began by the heads meeting in video conference. And again, we don't sing this from the rooftops. But when last the Attorney General and I would have been in Cabinet, it would have been impossible for such a meeting to take place. That an afternoon, the heads at a designated hour meet and on a screen can see one another and are able to have decisions made in quick time without anybody having to go to the airport and wait till they have to carry wherever it is. They have to go and pay a big lot of money at a hotel overnight, etc., in order to get something done for the country and for the region. We see, Mr. Speaker, sir, as the Attorney General has pointed us to the issue of the development of e-cabinet in Barbados. And with a cabinet of any size, because it is fanciful nowadays to talk about the cabinet being too big, nobody pauses to reflect on the amount of achievements that cabinet has been able to point to. And I believe, Mr. Speaker, sir, without gilding the lily in any way, that even the leader of the opposition would have to concede that it's impossible to point to a cabinet minister in this cabinet who has not had some success during the course of the last 9 months. And the fact of the matter is, he's here, sir, and I don't think he will disagree with me. You know, it is easy to say these things by way of criticism, but the reality is that there is clearly a hand of government on the reins. And the point is, sir, that part and parcel of what we try to achieve is greater efficacy, greater effectiveness, greater responsiveness to challenges that we have. Now, there was a time, sir, when we would have, and you, Mr. Speaker, sir, have never been in the cabinet, but I know the leader of the opposition served in cabinet at one point. And he knows what it is to have to wait in an office till 5:30 or 6 o'clock till when the cabinet papers come. And then the cabinet papers come and you big bundle of paper, breaking down your arm, and you go home and you have to read through reams and reams and reams of cabinet papers. Now, Mr. Speaker, sir, they're electronically at your fingertips. You're able to go through, make your notations on screen on an iPad, discuss whatever the key, make notes of the key issues that you may wish to raise. The whole thing, Mr. Speaker, sir, is trying to be done in a different way, in a better way, so that it can be more effective and better in terms of speed. Mr. Speaker, sir, I am pleased to be part of a process that we went through and brought to this House. My friend, I should say my learned friend, the member for St. James North, and I would have worked tirelessly on making sure that for the first time ever, we were in this country in a position to have people coming into Barbados and by digital means, automated means, using kiosks in order to have border control matters dealt with in an expeditious way. And Mr. Speaker, sir, it is a lived reality on a day-by-day basis in this country now. And it helps us, therefore, at peak times in winter like this, where, as happened 2 weeks ago, there was not an empty hotel bed to be found in Barbados. It helps us, sir, when we have 1,800 people passing through the airport in the space of a 3-hour period, to be able to have that kind of automated process. And if we didn't have it, we couldn't facilitate business. And if we can't facilitate business, business will seek life elsewhere. So this is about making us relevant and keeping us current. And it was a project embarked upon by a visionary government with an eye to sorting out economic difficulties that this country was in and this country was being burdened by, because there was an administration that appeared not either to understand nor care about the implications of their failure to be able to come to terms with the modern technology which is at our fingertips. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, I am pleased to be again part and parcel of this process of transformation and to see yet another exercise where this Parliament can show to the whole world, including the less than constructive critics out there, that this government is working. And though this is not a piece of legislation which immediately will place a dollar bill or a street light at someone's disposal or a road outside of your house, this piece of legislation, sir, makes it possible for government to be in a better position, sir, to facilitate enterprises which are seeking to employ people. It helps us to facilitate people, sir, who need to make applications for licenses. Helps us to facilitate people, sir, who have to have an idea of what licenses or permissions have been granted in Barbados. It helps us, sir, to be able to facilitate people who need tax relief or who need to know what decisions have been made with respect to income tax and land tax and other forms of taxation in Barbados. It helps us, Mr. Speaker, sir, to be able to facilitate people who have lost, and I think the Attorney General made reference to this, insurance policies. And your insurance policy is inextricably linked to your identity and your social safety. And we, Mr. Speaker, sir, are helping to facilitate those types of people in a real-time way. It helps them, sir, to understand what legislative developments have taken place, because each and every person in Barbados, as much as some people in here like to think so, do not spend all Tuesday doing nothing but listening to the radio to hear what the Leader of the Opposition had to say. So therefore, Mr. Speaker, sir, there has to be an independent way, a repository, as was the term of phrase used, so that you can access that information which the government has at its fingertips, that you can have it at your fingertips too. No, you don't have to take a drive anywhere to do it. You don't have to send a messenger anywhere to do it. You don't have to spend a cent to achieve access. You just log on. And that, Mr. Speaker, sir, is the benefit of the legislation. So again, I wish to commend all those colleagues who were involved in this process. I want to urge them to continue to ignore the less than constructive criticism and keep their collective noses to the grindstone, as certainly I will with respect to my remit. And Mr. Speaker, sir, we intend to continue to serve the best interests of the country. I am obliged to you.
Honourable Member for Christchurch
East. Mr. Speaker, I wish to commend the Attorney General for bringing this bill before Parliament. And there's a reason. And there's a reason, Mr. Speaker. I find quite often in Barbados, we do things in a way because they were done in that way. So our justification for why we follow a particular form or a particular procedure is because it has always been that way. and we don't see the necessity to adapt as quickly as the times are changing. I made a point this morning, sir, when I did a presentation to some children at Good Shepherd Primary School. And the children were horrified to learn that when I was a child, there was no Google. I pointed out to them, sir, that not only when I was a child was there no Google, but when I was a child there was no internet. And that the computers were as big as they were. And that iPads and handheld devices did not exist. To find a location, to find where you were going, you had to use a map or a compass. Now imagine, sir, if technology improved, but we refused to use things like the internet, and we refused to use Google, and we kept using the compass because that is how it was done. Well, sir, the reality is that is what's actually exactly what is happening in government and in the public sector. We keep using the compass even when we have Google Maps because we've always used the compass in the public sector. Sir, I was fortunate to spend 5 years in the other place. And I remember when I came in, and every week we got stacks and stacks of paper with the bills, the amendments, everything. And I was horrified, sir, when I got my first set of the estimates. And I actually went home and I weighed them. And they weighed 10.7 pounds. 10.7 pounds of, I don't know. 10.7 pounds of paper, sir, that I got 5 times when I was in the other place. So for the estimates alone, I got about 55 pounds of paper in my term in the other place. That was me. There were 20 of us. So that is 1,000 pounds of paper in the estimates for the other place. And if there are 30 people in here, my master is struggling, 1,500 pounds. So 2,500 pounds of paper would have gone to the estimates alone over the last 5 years. Over the last 2,500 pounds. Sir, averaging the weights of people in here, sir, that is probably, if we add the weights of everybody who's in here now, cutting the average in half for Minister Cattle.
No names.
Sorry, sir.
No names.
We spent more, there was more paper generated, sir, than the combined weight of the people now sitting in this honorable chamber. And I made the point early in my term that I would prefer to get my documents electronically. There were some issues. Some of the older members did not want to change. They wanted to get it in paper. So we ended up having a situation where some people got the documents in paper. Everybody had access to it electronically, but it was still printed for other people. But we have now come to the point. We have now come to the point, sir, where with this amendment, we are effectively saying we are serious about moving to a paperless parliament. We are serious about moving to a paperless parliament. We took the step to move effectively to a paperless cabinet with the e-cabinet. I think most people, sir, in the cabinet are committed and have bought in. But the fact is that is the way it is going. Why is this important, sir? The official gazette is the government's official notification device. That is how the government officially notifies the public of anything that is happening. I was a lawyer for 20 years, sir, and I only knew what the gazette was because I was a lawyer. So if this is the way to notify people officially, and even the lawyers sir, I would hazard a guess that every lawyer does not read the Gazette. Actually, perhaps, I won't put you on the spot, sir, but unless you
read the Gazette, I remember. I am forced to, because they put things in the official Gazette.
Correct, sir. But sir, I would hazard a guess that all lawyers don't actually read the Gazette. So by making it electronic and making notification or publication electronic, we not just made it more efficient, we've not just made it faster, but we've actually made it relevant. Because now, the public of Barbados can actually see what goes on in the Gazette. Sir, the laws of Barbados, another perfect example. The laws of Barbados used to be printed, and every lawyer that came in that got called to the bar tried to buy a copy of the laws of Barbados, and the laws of Barbados sold in the bound volumes were for $14,000. $14,000 for a set of laws of Barbados. What that meant is that the average citizen did not have access to the laws of Barbados. Laws are something that everybody should have. If I want to do something, if I want to embark upon an enterprise, I should be able to verify for myself what are the parameters within which the law will allow me to operate my enterprise. I should be able to tell if something I'm doing constitutes a crime or if it's permitted under the laws of Barbados. We have the laws online. They're accessible, sir, to members of parliament. They started to circulate among the legal profession a little while ago unofficially. Somebody got a copy and started to circulate that. But the fact is that they're still not available in a particular place for access by the general public. Why? Why? There is no good reason. It is just because they never were. The laws of Barbados should not be a mystery. I pull again, sir, to how we refuse to change. If you recall, sir, the court list used to be printed and published by the registry. I think the list was sold for $5. At a certain point in time, the presidency of the bar changed, and the new president decided, well, why are all the members of the bar paying $5 on a Friday for a list when we could get the list, scan it, and email it to everybody? And the registry was up in arms. The registry of the Supreme Court was up in arms that they insisted the proper way was that the lawyers needed to come, anybody wanting a court list needed to come to the registry, pay the $5 and get the court list. And that it was the intellectual property of the registry. It became about collecting $5 more than distributing the list so people could be informed as to what is happening in the court. Where we are now, sir, children are moving away from paper. Most children outside of Barbados receive their assignments, do their assignments, do all their coursework, do all their research online. Encyclopedias don't sell. Children know about dictionary.com. They don't know about the Oxford or the Merriam-Webster dictionary. The reality is that in 10 years from now, there's nothing that we're going to be doing that uses paper. Exceedingly few things. We are not going to be doing anything in the parliament with paper. Paper is unlikely to be used in schools. The printing of books and the publishing of books has changed. You do books online now, not sell them in bookstores. So if we know that in 10 years we are going to get to that point, then there's no excuse to not just make the change right now. I commend the Attorney General for this, but I also believe that we need to capitalize. The Gazette can now become a lot more regular in its publication. We don't necessarily have to worry about the cost aspect of it. And sir, we can also look to make the Gazette self-sustaining. There is no good reason why appropriate advertisements should not be received into the Gazette in the same way that they are in the newspaper. I'm not hearing a side, sir. I actually literally can't hear the side. But I am saying, sir, we need to get to the point where the Gazette is as relevant as the Nation newspaper, the Advocate newspaper, or Barbados Today. That person, sir, read the Gazette for information in the same way that they turn to the daily newspapers. So I embrace this amendment. I think this is yet another step towards us getting to where we need to get to. I also believe that in the same way that the Cabinet of Barbados has embraced the change and accepted the inevitability of the march towards an electronic society, that the public and the public service of Barbados should do the same. It is time, sir, that we stop going in to the building across there to pay VAT or to pay income tax. It is time we are able to pay income tax, land tax online. We should no longer have to track up to the licensing authority to pay for licenses. It is time we start to pay for licenses and renew licenses online. It is time that we need not go down to the registry and we can do any applications that we want to do for birth certificate or death certificates online. Because every hour that a Barbadian spends in a line wasting time when they do not have to be is an hour that we've lost in productivity to Barbados. And we are aiming now at an efficient public service. We're aiming at an efficient, streamlined, lean, mean country. We are aiming, sir, at an efficient government. So we need to use all of the resources at our disposal, including technology, and especially including online transactions, to get us there. Sir, I undertook to be short, and I want to add my 100% wholehearted support of this, and my hope to the Attorney General through you, sir, that this is a sign of things to come and a steady march to us embracing technology and progress in everything that we do. I thank you, sir.
Honourable St. Peter.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I want as well to join with honourable members who spoke before to support the amendment that is before the House, the amendment to the Interpretation Act. As the honourable member for St. James Central said, I didn't actually count the words, but he said there were 91 words. Unlike the learned Attorney General, he did not go to Waterford, and probably because he didn't, I trust his counting skills maybe a little bit more than I trust the Attorney General's counting skills. But
I remember you counted them, no?
No, I trust the counting of the honourable member for St. James Central.
Right. That there might be incorrect.
I trust his number. I trust his number. I want, Mr. Speaker, to see this bill, the amendment to the Act, the proposed amendment, once we pass it in this place and the other place, as part of what we've been speaking about over a number of months now in this chamber. And that has to do with democratizing government and improving governance in this country. For democracy to be effective, for it to make sense, for it to be relevant in our society or in any other society, there has to be access to information. because democracy assumes that people are participating. And if people are to participate effectively, then they have to have the information that is necessary to make their participation effective. And in a 2019 era, that sharing of information, that making of information available to people, generally to the population, cannot be done, can no longer be done. As a matter of fact, I'm not sure if it has ever been done using paper. Because by its nature, paper has to be moved around in a physical form. Somebody has to walk with it. Back maybe when some of us in here were a little younger, it might have been moved by donkey cart, by airplane, for post mail, it has to be moved in some kind of physical form. And that in itself restricts its availability. And therefore, information that has to reach large numbers of persons, if it is to be done using paper, then we are impeding the exercise of the democratic process. We are affecting the availability, we are affecting the access to information by the people who need to have the information if they are going to be participating meaningfully in the democratic process. And so, from that perspective, I support this bill, this amendment, wholeheartedly, where information that must be made available to the public is now, once this is passed, is now able to get to the public in a way where more people can access it than if the only medium was using paper. I fully support that move to improve the democracy of our society. And Mr. Speaker, I place this development because even though we speak about it being less than 100 words or 91 words, I place this amendment along a journey that our people have been on for hundreds of years to achieve democracy, to be more fully involved in the government and the governance of their country, of their society. So that, Mr. Speaker, I don't want to take us on a history journey, but if you go back to 1639, I often go back there because it has significance to St. Peter, when Coffee was to be crowned king of the country. But people were struggling then to be involved in the management of their affairs. In 1816, people were struggling to be more involved in the management of their affairs. And then that seminal event, which formed the party that I am happy to be a part of, the party that helped to create the public life of the Honourable Leader of the Opposition, that seminal event in 1937 was also an attempt by the ordinary people of the country to become more involved in their governance. Yes, to have better lives, to improve their economic circumstances, but fundamentally to be more involved in how their affairs were managed. And so we see a journey, a continuum. In 1951, Barbados would have had its first election where persons who were 21 years or older could participate. We call it adult suffrage, universal adult suffrage. That was part of the journey where people were saying, we want to be part of the process. In 1966, we would have achieved political independence from the United Kingdom. All along, Mr. Speaker, the people of the country have wanted to be part or to have a greater say in the functioning, in the management of their affairs in this country. In the late 1970s, when this party, in a previous incarnation, would have brought and passed the Tenantry Freehold Purchase Act, that is what some historians call more economic democracy. But all these, Mr. Speaker, have been attempts by ordinary people based on agitation by these persons to be more involved. And I'm saying to you, Mr. Speaker, and to this honorable chamber, that meaningful participation means that people must have the information upon which to base their decisions. This proposed amendment is part of a long journey. And I want to repeat something that I said last week. I see life as a journey. And so, unlike some other people, I do not expect perfection at every step along the way. I know the Honourable Leader of the Opposition wanted the bill we debated last week to be a perfect bill. But I think he sings the same hymn I sing. And it is, I'm pressing on the upward way. New heights I'm gaining every day. And this Barbados Labour Party is pressing on the upward way. As we progress, Mr. Speaker, we can see how this party has been bringing to this honourable chamber pieces of legislation that move that struggle for democracy further along. And so this proposed amendment is but one in a series of actions that this government has taken over the years and continues to take to say to the country, we want you more involved in the management of your affairs. And so when we were able to pass the Financial Management Act, that act, for example, says that state-owned enterprises and commercial state-owned enterprises will now have to have public meetings every 2 years. Members of the public are to have access to the information. Members of the public are to be able to sit in a room and face the directors and the management of the institution and ask questions. But Mr. Speaker, if they are to ask relevant questions, then they must have access to the information. And that is why, like this proposed amendment, in that bill, information must be made public. And in 2019, information reaches most people, or the largest number of people, when it is available in electronic form. And so, moving to improve our democracy and making state-owned enterprises more accessible and allowing people to participate was one of those steps. The debate we had about the standing orders, allowing us to change how we lay and debate the estimates, is another step in opening our governance, making it more democratic, making information more accessible to the people of the country. And I want to laud the learned Attorney General and the Prime Minister, the Honourable Member for St. Michael Northeast, for these steps. And I think history, when this era is chronicled, will see these amendments, these bills, these steps as having been seminal, having been major in their impact along the road to making our country and our society more democratic. Mr. Speaker, this is also, along with making the system more democratic, this is also to be seen within the context of modernizing our country, modernizing the way we do business, modernizing the way we function. Modernization for us in this party and in this government is about creating efficiency and improving efficiency so that, for example, Mr. Speaker, town planning applications can now be made electronically. When I operated in a different sphere, we often lamented how long it took for town planning application to get from the town planning department, well, between the time taken between the actual application and getting a response to say it has been approved or it has been denied. But that was because the file had to move from department to department, from ministry to ministry. Now, when we allow for electronic applications, we allow for situations where different ministries, different departments can see and make decisions about applications simultaneously, cutting down the time that it takes to do some of these things. Efficiency also speaks to the ease of retrieving information. I have had, since I've become Minister responsible for Labour and Social Partnership Relations, asked questions and have been told, well, we have to send to the registry to look for the file, to find the information from the file. I've had a situation where I've wanted to find out something from the registry, the court registry, and I've been told, well, we have to check for the file. We think the file is in the Supreme Court building that is being renovated. And then to hear, well, it might not even be there. It might be in the old court. And so weeks have passed, and I don't have the relevant information for persons in my constituency who want the information urgently. Making information accessible electronically aids in that process, allows us, not just those of us who operate at the policy political level, but those in the public service, because, Mr. Speaker, you can be assured that persons who work in the public service are often just as frustrated as those of us who are ministers, because they recognize the frustration, the time it takes. They too want to make decisions, want to get things done, want to get files off their desks. But they have to go through the same process. Dig up files, then have upper respiratory tract infections, all kinds of stuff, things that are actually contributing to making some of our buildings sick buildings. So efficiency, Mr. Speaker, speaks to the ease also of retrieving information. One honourable member also spoke to the ease of having meetings. And I'm talking about the use of technology as it relates to how we manage our affairs as a country. Last Wednesday, we participated in a COSOD, the Council for Human and Social Development, a labour meeting of ministers of labour. And like the honourable member for St. James Central said, I did not have to go to the airport an hour and a half before, wait for LIAC, and pay airfare and pay for hotel. We were able to have a meeting of CARICOM ministers using the technology. There are savings all around. There is improved efficiency by using technology. And in a 2019 Barbados, we have to recognize that the use of technology is no longer an option. We have come to a place where the use of technology in the management of our affairs is a must if we are to remain relevant as a government and if we are to remain relevant as a country among the family of nations. And we have heard as well about the environmental considerations. And, Mr. Speaker, I think we ought to take very seriously the environmental ramifications of our continuing use of paper. We sometimes make jokes about killing trees. But paper, generally speaking, is made through the destruction of trees. The trees that produce the oxygen for you and I to breathe. And we have to recognize that some of the things that we do and sometimes take for granted, we have to spend some more time reflecting. And, you know, I would want to say, and maybe this is a little bit tangential, that Barbadians generally have to reflect more about what we do and how we do what we do and why we do what we do. And I'm speaking, I said tangential because I'm referring not directly to government and the bureaucracy and how the public service works. I'm talking about people generally. I think we have to do more thinking, more reflecting, if we're going to improve ourselves and improve our society. But the environmental concerns are real. And it is not just the killing of trees. The learned Attorney General spoke to the fact that these files have to go into, or the gazettes have to go into a vehicle and to be driven somewhere. Now, tires are being used, parts are depreciating, petrol, fossil fuels at this point being used, creating pollutants in the atmosphere. There are lots of environmental considerations in this matter. And these are considerations that, Mr. Speaker, must be taken very seriously. And that is why sometimes we encourage people not to drive as much if you can avoid driving. You know, sometimes these things are seen as hindrances, but I'm saying that the world as we speak is struggling to get to a point where the annual, I think it's annual, increase in temperature is to be kept to, is it annual? To less than 1.5 degrees Celsius per year, increases in temperature. We are creating, we, human beings living on the planet at this time, are creating a situation where life may not continue for very much longer if we continue acting in the way that we are acting. And so when I see, Mr. Speaker, an amendment of 91 words, I see it more than just an amendment of 91 words. I see this as an amendment that, not on its own, but it is part of a voice that speaks to the proper management or the improved management of our environment. I need to mention something. The issue of inefficiency in the management of affairs is not something that relates only to the public sector. I just want to make that point. The private sector is often as inefficient, not always, but often as inefficient as the public sector as it relates to the use of technology or the effective use of technology. At a meeting recently, the Prime Minister, the Honourable Member for St. Michael Northeast, was moved to wonder aloud, well, to state that when Cabinet has urgent matters to attend to, we send Cabinet papers by round robin. While there are some companies in Barbados that have to wait 15, 20, 25 days until the next board meeting comes around. And so I say that to say to elements, operatives, businesses in the private sector that we expect that all of us as a country would get to the point where we all use private sector, public sector, and the third sector, civil society, we all use the technology to ultimate advantage, that we seek efficiencies, that we seek to change the way we do business and to improve the way we do business. And when I say do business, I'm not just referring to commercial activity, how we act, how we live. We use technology to our advantage. The final thing, Mr. Speaker, that I want to say is that modernization is not, in my books, about machinery. Modernization is not about technology. I see modernization as being about people. I see modernization as being about people because modernization allows people who are working, who are operating in certain environments, to be more effective in their work. And I am one of those people of the view that people who go to work want to contribute meaningfully, want to feel fulfilled. And so any mechanism that allows people to work more effectively, more efficiently, to get the tasks that they've started done, and done in short time, effective time, without having to suffer through complaints. I believe that most people want to do that. And any change in our methods that allows people to be more effective allows workers to feel better about their work. And so I say modernization is about people. Modernization is also about those people who are on the receiving end of the service provision. It is frustrating. An honourable member spoke to standing in long lines to pay a license, to get a photograph taken to put on the ID card. Lines to do so many things. Modernization and the better use of technology allows individuals to feel better when they are receiving service more effectively, more efficiently, standing less in lines, doing some common task from home rather than having to go to a business place, because that is how it is done. You have to go there to get that done. I remember a lady, I do not remember what she looks like, but I remember I was a candidate at the time, and I went to pay land tax at the BRA office in Weymouth. And a lady said to me, and I hope that she has been following this government's progress over the last 8+ months, because she said to me, I see you standing in this line now, but I hope that you stand in this long line after you get elected to Parliament. What she was really saying, Mr. Speaker, was that oftentimes we too complain about these things, but once we get into this august chamber, we forget about the real ramifications of ineffective methods on the ordinary people of the country. This amendment, this proposed amendment, plus all the other things that we have done to use technology more efficiently over the past almost 9 months, has been a result of us as a government, or we as a government, I can't remember what the correct English is, but it reflects this government's understanding that the effective use of technology creates an efficiency that redounds to the benefit of the people of this country. And so when I say that technology is not about machinery, technology is not about modernization, not just about machinery or technology, I want us to remember always that whatever we do in this place, whatever we do to improve the workings of government agencies, of private sector businesses, of third sector organizations, whatever we are doing, we have to remember that we are doing it for the benefit of people. And in here, we are doing it for the benefit of the people of the country. And so, Mr. Speaker, I want again to reaffirm my support for this amendment. I support it because it makes sense in a 2019 Barbados. I support it because it speaks to efficiency, improved efficiency. I support it because I see it as part of the journey toward making our society more democratic. And I support it because it helps my people. And with those words, sir, I am obliged to you.
Honourable Member for St. Joseph.
Mr. Speaker, I'm grateful for the enthusiastic support of the members of the government front bench on this particular issue. I don't think that it requires me to say much more. I believe, in summary, that this amendment to the Interpretation Act will lead to a new relationship with the public of Barbados, and it is a relationship, sir, that is long overdue, and I'm sure will be welcome. With those few words, I wish to move that you do now leave the chair and... Sorry? I did not hear it. Which question? I'm obliged to, sir.
The question is that this bill be read a second time. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Aye. All those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it.
I just want to make sure. Beg to move, sir, that you do now leave the chair and the House resolve itself into committee.
Question is that the Speaker do not leave the chair and the House resolve itself into committee for further consideration of this bill. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it.
This House is now in committee.
There's one.
Madam Chairman of Committees, I wish to move an amendment to Clause 1 to read, instead of the year 2018, the year 2019.
Second that.
Question is that Clause 1 be amended to read...
2019.
Was it? 2019. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. Aye. All honourable members against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 2.
Madam Chair, I beg to move that Clause 2 stand parked.
Question is that Clause 2 stand par. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. Aye. All honourable members against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 3.
I beg to move that Clause 3 stand parked.
Question is that Clause 3 stand par. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. Aye. All honourable members against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 4.
I beg to move that Clause 4 stand parked.
Question is that Clause 4 stand par. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. Aye. All honourable members against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
4.
Beg Move that you do report to His Excellency the Speaker, His Honor the Speaker, the passing of one bill in committee.
Question is that somebody just second. Question is that I now report to the Honourable Speaker the passing of one bill in committee. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. All honourable members against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Chairman of committee has reported the passing of one bill in committee.
I beg to move that this bill do now pass and be cited.
Third time.
Read a third time, sir.
Beg to second that.
Question is that this bill be read a third time. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that this bill do now pass and be cited as the Interpretation Amendment Act 2019.
Beg to second that.
Question is that this bill be passed and so cited. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. This bill is so passed and so cited.
Facilitate the laying of the estimates.
Honourable member for the City of Bridgetown.
Mr. Speaker, I beg that this Honourable House be suspended to facilitate the laying of the estimates until 7 p.m. this evening.
The question is that this honourable chamber be suspended until 7 p.m. this evening. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. This honourable chamber is suspended until 7 p.m. this evening.